Good day and welcome to another part of learning on educational philosophers. In this lesson, you are expected to discuss the contribution of philosophers in education. There are many philosophers in education, but the following philosophers will be discussed in this lesson. So kindly pay attention to each educational philosopher that will be or who will be discussed today. First, we have a prominent philosopher here. We have Plato. According to him, every individual should devote his life to do what is best fitted for him to do. The important function of education is to determine what every individual is by nature capable and fitted of doing things. He also states that poor leadership will lead to wrong decisions. Further, he also advocates that social justice is giving of what is due to whom it is due. And also, intellectual aristocracy is the rule of intellectual elite. Next, we have Aristotle. So for him, the end of education is not knowledge alone. It is the union of the innate intellect of an individual and his will. So it is knowledge expressed in action. Then virtue, which is moral excellence, goodness, and righteousness, is not possession of knowledge. It is state of the will. So virtue is moral excellence. Vices are irrational habits or practices. And he also encourages scientific approaches to education and practice of moderation. Then we have Socrates. For him, knowledge is wisdom, which in effect means virtue. The problem of evil is the results of ignorance. Knowledge is virtue and ignorance is vice. Knowledge is the basis of all right actions, including the art of living. So for him, the more knowledgeable you are, the more virtuous you are as a person. Another, we have Confucius. So for him, development of moral and ethical principles to promote peace and order and to preserve human dignity is or must be emphasized. Family should serve as model for correct relations among them. He postulated the golden rule for all men to follow. So that is, treat others as you wish them to treat to you. Further, he advocates that order and harmony should begin in the inner nature of man. And man can enjoy inner peace and harmony and happiness by observing God's law, which is enshrined in every individual conscience. Confucius also emphasized the importance of self-control. So for him, who he conquers others are strong. He who conquers himself is the greatest victor. Next, we have Lao Tse. So he emphasized the virtue of passivity, humility, and frugality. So to achieve happiness, men should bring themselves into harmony with Tao or Tao, which he was not a god but the supreme and governing principle of the universe. And to achieve happiness is be yourself, be natural, live in accordance with your true good and best nature. Next, we have here Spencer. So for Spencer, knowledge acquired that is best for use in life is also the best for the development of power. So he emphasized physical activity, science-oriented curriculum, and for him, societies are bound to change. He opposed to free public education because for him, those who really want an education should work hard to acquire the means to attain it. We also have Comenius. So he advocates the development of the whole man before he becomes professional. Effective learning is done through the use of vernacular. Follow the order of natural law. Train for character development. Both boys and girls should be included in education regardless of their socioeconomic status, and he advocated the use of visual aids in classroom teaching. We also have here Saint Thomas Aquinas. For him, matter was created by God as the primary substance. He also believed in God as the supreme being and also postulated the 5 reasons of God's existence. Then we also have FROEBEL. He is a German educational reformer and considered the father of kindergarten system. So he introduced play into the kindergarten as an active influence in shaping the life of the child. He believed that education should be accompanied by a spirit of harmony and joy, and that creative expression should be encouraged. He also respected the individuality of each child and maintained that the potentialities to be found in each individual must be developed. Because for him, creativity helped to lift the spirit of learning. So he emphasized the teacher should recognize the formative years of the learner, and their growth and development is very much important. So the curriculum should be particular with the children's interests and potentials. We also have HERBART. He is a German philosopher and educator and referred to as the father of modern psychology. He believes that learning should lead to character formation and maintain that the aim of education is ethical and moral development. So for him, the most important school subjects are history and literature. He has also this educational doctrine known as Herbartian method that are categorized into 4 steps: the preparation, presentation, comparison, and generalization. Another we have here Pestalozzi. He is a Swiss educational reformer. He considers knowledge of a child's nature of instruction to be used could immensely aid or retard education, and discipline as an act in accordance with rules should be strict but benevolent in nature. So for him, most valuable lessons were to the learners through observations, inquiring, and reasoning. He focuses on constructive, creative work and student discussion. Another philosopher we have here, Rousseau. He is a French educational philosopher who wrote Emile or Emily. So a book where doctrine emphasizes that a child should be educated through his own initiative and expectation of the learning environment. So for him, a better education could be obtained through physical activity and perception of nature rather than through books. So for him, the ultimate aim of education is not to make a soldier, a magistrate, or an engineer, but to make a man. Then, of course, John Dewey. He is an American philosopher and educator and the most influential thinker in the recent times. He developed the theory of knowledge, especially in terms of biological and psychological role. He is also a proponent of pragmatism, the learning by doing. So for him, education is life, not a preparation for life. Education is growth. The school is primarily a social institution, and the center of correlation is child's own social activities. We also have Sigmund Freud. He is an Austrian neurologist and founder of psychoanalysis, who emphasized the role of unconscious processes and psychosexual stages in the determination of behavior. We also have Carl Jung. He is a Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist. Like Freud, he emphasized also an unconscious process and psychosexual stages. He focused instead on the collective unconscious and inner self-experience in behavior determination. We also have Edward Thorndike. He is American psychologist and lexicographer. He is known for his law and effect, which states that rewarded responses are strengthened and unrewarded responses are weakened. So these lay the foundations of understanding learning and suggested means for the control of human behavior. So he has postulated the law of effect, law of exercise, law of readiness, the control of human behavior, and the social intelligence. We also have Skinner. He formulated the concept of operant conditioning as a kind of conditioning. So these reinforcers could be used to make a response more or less probable of psychoanalytic thought to include social environment factors in development of personality. Albert Bandura is another philosopher. He proposed the social learning theory, the observation of behavior. He emphasized the importance of observing and modeling of behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others. Jean Piaget is known for his theory of cognitive development. It's how children think and develop has a significant impact on education. Also, we have Vygotsky, known for his zone of proximal development, scaffolding. Learning is fundamentally a socially mediated activity. Thought development is determined by language. Also, we have Erik Erikson, known for his psychosocial development, the stage of basic trust and mistrust, autonomy versus shame, industry versus inferiority, identity versus role confusion, intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and integrity versus despair. So these lessons were already discussed in your other subjects in education. We also have Lawrence Kohlberg, known for his theory of moral development. So using surveys to assess moral development, and for him, moral reasoning is related to person's cognitive level. Howard Gardner proposed the interpersonal intelligence, the interpersonal intelligence, and the emotional intelligence. Also, Ivan Pavlov, known for his classical conditioning. We also have John Watson, the first behaviorist to apply stimulus response to the study of child development. All emotions, pleasant and unpleasant, were learned. We also have Abraham Maslow, famous for his hierarchy of needs, containing biological, security, love and belonging needs, and esteem needs. So we also have the self-actualization. Also Max Wertheimer, the founder of Gestalt psychology, configuration or organization. Whatever happens to a person influences everything else about him or her. We also have Wolfgang Kohler. For him, complex learning involves two phases. Problem solving is used to derive a solution, and solution is stored in memory and retrieved when needed. Peirce is also the founder of pragmatism. He is considered the father of pragmatism, a philosopher and mathematician. The meaning of ideas and concepts are best discovered and established when these are put in an experimental test. Another proponent here, William James, also proponent of pragmatism. So for him, the test of theory must be its results, and ideas are tools with which man is able to meet life situations. Another, we have Soren Kierkegaard, a Danish religious thinker. For him, man is a subjective thinker. Existence is in character, and man alone can comprehend the meaning of his existence. We also have Friedrich Nietzsche. The nature of man is vulnerable to deficiencies. All men are unequal. Nature is beyond good and evil. Morality is an invention of the weak. So there are only a few out of the many philosophers and thinkers in education. The many philosophers and thinkers in line with education. So if we're going to analyze based from the knowledge that we have learned from the introduction of philosophy up to the different educational philosophies, and lastly the educational philosophers, so we will be able to understand and reflect that indeed we have a very rich philosophical heritage in education. Whatever kind of education that we have today, it only reflects the kind of philosophers that we have in the past. And whatever developments happened in the educative process, we can owe them all to the philosophers who made the thinking and reasoning in order to have a developed educational system. So we must be thankful that we have the philosophers in education. So for your reference, I have sourced out different books in order to come up with this presentation. Don't forget to read further references in preparation for your LET. Just this question that you have to answer in your journal. If you are to develop your own educational philosophy, what would it be? As I have mentioned in the previous presentations, our philosophy serves as our window to the world and compass in our lives. So it guides us how to deal with other people and how to deal with our problem in the present, how we feel, how we act, how we also decide. So you have to articulate your philosophy of education so that you can be able to prepare as you teach in the future. Always remember that your philosophy is reflected in the way you deal with your students, your colleagues, your parents, and of course, your school head in the future. So that ends the presentation. I hope you learned from this lesson. Thank you for listening.